Okay, good afternoon and welcome to the Greater Kitchener-Waterloo Chamber of Commerce Candidate Forum for the riding of Kitchener-Conestoga. The format for this event will be 1-minute introductory remarks from each candidate, followed by questions in priority areas identified by the Greater Kitchener-Waterloo Chamber of Commerce through their advisory committees and responses for the membership at large. The questions will be asked in rotation, and the moderator reserves the right to terminate answers where appropriate. At the conclusion of the debate, each candidate will be allowed 1 minute for closing remarks, which will proceed in reverse order from opening remarks. And if we can keep, the answers to the questions as well to 60 seconds, just because we have a lot to get through, that'd be appreciated as well. We'll now commence with 60-second opening remarks. The candidate order, as determined alphabetically by surname, is Owen Bradley from the Green Party of Canada, Carleen Hawley from the Conservative Party of Canada, Tim Lewis from the Liberal Party of Canada, and Nareen Datsukram from the NDP. Carleen Hawley will answer the first question and the previous rotation will continue. Concluding remarks will be in reverse order. We'll start the debate with Owen Bradley for opening remarks. Owen.
Thank you. I'd like to take this time to call attention to multiple concerns I have about 3 of my fellow candidates that have received no attention from our local media, but may concern many, if not addressed prior to voting. First, both Carleen Hawley and Kevin Dupuis have been endorsed by a highly secretive, hardline anti-choice organization by the name of Campaign Life Coalition. However, only Kevin has offered a glimpse of his position on matters warranting this endorsement. Despite this endorsement, as well as receiving support from parents as first educators, Carleen has gone out of her way to conceal her affiliation with both groups and has not made any public references to her related policy positions or any pledges she may have made to either organization to earn this endorsement. Lastly, Tim Lewis was implicated by the Globe and Mail in multiple stories surrounding the Raj Saini sexual misconduct case over the weekend. However, there's been no public record of any response from him on the matter. I believe it is of public interest that he provide at least one comment regarding these accusations, however limited his involvement may have been. While I doubt there will be any time available to us to investigate these matters further during the course of this debate, I know of no other opportunity to express these concerns to a wide audience, especially in light of my inability to invoke any meaningful response from multiple local news outlets, producers, and reporters that I've shared these supporting documents with. If anyone wishes to review this on their own, they can find that at my Twitter account at Owen Bradley 4KC.
Thank you, Owen. I will go now to opening remarks to Carleen Hawley.
Thank you. So I am honored to be here and I'm grateful to the Chamber of Commerce for organizing this forum. I am a certified public accountant and I look forward to bringing my skills and experience to serve our community in Ottawa. I see eye to eye with the business community and farmers in the area here. I am a mom of 4 teenagers. My husband and I are both business leaders and have lived in the area for over 20 years. And I just want to say thank you again for having me here today.
Thank you. Tim Lewis for opening remarks.
Thank you for the invitation, and it's been a privilege to be here. The COVID-19 pandemic has brought forth unprecedented challenges for businesses and families. And since the start of the pandemic, the Liberal government was there to have the backs of Canadians and small businesses, because we know that they are at the heart of our local and national economy. We've introduced significant and important measures to help safeguard businesses at a time when they needed it the most. This quick and meaningful action was necessary and important. And I know we must continue to do more, particularly for those sectors that were disproportionately impacted, including our hospitality, tourism, and arts industries. In this election, we've got an important choice to make about the direction that we will take to finish this fight against COVID-19. I'll keep working hard for Kitchener-Conestoga, continuing to be there to support Canadians as we work together moving forward. I look forward to this debate.
Thank you to you all for opening remarks. We'll get into the question portion of the session. The first question is, what is the priority local issue for the residents of the riding where you're seeking election in September of 2021? And Carleen, will begin with you for the first response.
Okay, sorry, I hate to do this, but could you just repeat that again? I thought the Nareen was going to be here today.
Yeah, absolutely. I can repeat it.
Okay.
I was told that he wasn't attending, so.
Oh, I see. Okay.
Just your email here.
Okay.
So first question is, what is the priority local issue for the residents of the riding where you're seeking election in September of 2021?
Right. Okay. Thank you. Yes. So I think our biggest priority is to get our public finances under control and to work to reduce our massive federal debt because that will affect everything else. Climate change, housing affordability, healthcare. Our capacity to invest in every other issue is going to be dependent on securing the economy. We've done it before and we'll do it again. Thank you.
Thank you. Tim, your response to priority local issue for the residents of the riding you're seeking election in this election?
You know what, from the start of this election, I've been out 7 days a week, 9 hours a day, knocking on doors and been engaging in important conversations with our friends and neighbors throughout Wellesley, Wilmot, Woolwich, and Kitchener. Some of the key issues that I'm hearing from the community is the need to make life more affordable, particularly with respect of cost of housing. I'm also having discussions at the door about taking meaningful action to protect our environment. And at every door, the first thing I ask people is, are you safe and are you well? We were there for Canadians to keep them safe and supported. And I know that we'll finish this fight against the pandemic by prioritizing the health and safety of all Canadians, all while we continue to have the backs of workers and small business owners. So I'm hearing about growing the economy with $10 a day universal childcare plan that will help make the cost of daycare affordable for families. And it's why we're also putting forward a strong housing plan that will allow Canadians, especially young people, to own a home. So the Liberal Party has put forth an ambitious, realistic, and practical plan to address the climate crisis while at the same time growing the economy. It's not a one-issue election, but we can work together to move forward, to build on the progress that we've made, and we can do it in a way that where everyone belongs and is supported.
Thank you. Owen, what is the priority local issue for the residents of the riding you're seeking election in this election?
Well, since we're referring to local issues in particular, I constantly heard at the door concerns about protecting farmland and groundwater from the mining of aggregates from glacial deposits. That came up pretty much at every home that I spoke to outside of broader national issues. I can certainly say that affordability, inflation, and our general fiscal position came up quite a lot. And actually, I had a lot of wonderful conversations about how the Green Party has had a long history of focusing on both environmental and fiscal sustainability. I frankly find it a bit laughable, the suggestion that the Conservatives have done much of anything to address this problem in the past. During the Harper administration, they ran 22 consecutive quarterly deficits and achieved a net cumulative deficit over that tenure of $51 billion. I would very much like an opportunity to represent this riding and do all we can, both in terms of addressing spending and addressing opportunities to generate additional revenues to make sure that we can alleviate our need to rely on quantitative easing to supplement our deficit.
Thank you. Second question, do you support in principle the implementation of a proof of vaccination program for non-essential businesses? And Tim, will begin with you on this question.
Thank you for this important question. The short answer is I do. To finish the fight against COVID-19, protect people at work, ensure businesses can get back up to speed, and most importantly, make sure our kids can safely return to school. We need to do everything we can to keep public spaces safe. At the federal level, travelers on commercial planes and trains will be required to be vaccinated, and will also ensure the vaccination of federal workers. But provincial lockdowns have kept people safe, but they've also deeply affected small businesses. No one wants another lockdown. Businesses want to stay open. That's what they're telling me. They want to protect their employees and the children that are under 12 that the employees go home to. So this remains fundamentally an area of provincial responsibility. The O in OHIP stands for Ontario. So they have the data and they're going to need to step up. But our federal government is there. We've made a $1 billion fund available to pay for provinces that implement a vaccine certificate system. And we're going to table legislation to ensure that every business and organization that decides to require proof of vaccination can do so without fear of legal challenge. So I believe the decision to get vaccinated is not only the right one, it's a compassionate one.
Thank you. Owen, same question. Do you support in principle the implementation of a proof of vaccination program for non-essential businesses?
Thank you. Much like Tim, I certainly do appreciate the need for our entire population to seriously consider vaccination. On this particular matter, I wholeheartedly approve a requirement of a proof of vaccination in any voluntary labor setting and would certainly encourage bargaining units to approve the same in unionized workforces. There is every reason to expect that everyone in this country, vaccinated or otherwise, will eventually come in contact with a far more virulent Delta variant. Vaccines have proven to be safe and generally effective at preventing severe and prolonged illness or death. However, it can still leave those exposed to the virus at least momentarily contagious. For the welfare of employees, their colleagues, clients, and themselves, those working or pursuing work should reasonably expect to be asked for proof of vaccination. I would still recommend all employers continue the practice of employing safe protocols and employing the use of personal protective equipment to avoid prolonged exposure in indoor spaces that are generally not well ventilated or cleaned routinely, even if all colleagues have been fully vaccinated.
Thank you. Carlene, do you support in principle the implementation of proof of vaccination program for non-essential businesses?
Right. So COVID has been so tough on all of us for the last 18 months. This is unprecedented. And so I do fully believe that we need to continue to protect people, and we need to use common sense. And at the federal level, I'll say that Conservatives respect the rights of Canadians to make their own health choices, and that we encourage Canadians to be vaccinated. This is an issue that Trudeau has used to try to divide Canadians during this election, and it is also an issue of provincial jurisdiction. So I'll leave my answer there. Thank you.
Thank you. Third question, what are the infrastructure priorities for this riding? Owen, we'll begin with you on this question.
Terribly sorry about that. At least as the Green Party, we feel we need to radically rethink our transportation network before it's too late to do much of anything without incurring exceptionally higher costs and delays. We continue to develop more and more planned communities that are entirely car dependent, which will become increasingly unsustainable as we expand and become more dense, expand wider and become more dense at the core. We've done little to nothing to connect our remote communities with each other to our population centers. And between our exceptional software and mechanical engineering programs, we believe that we could be in a unique position to lead the nation in fully autonomous personal transportation across our network of low-density regional roads. Communities like Hamburg, Wellesley, Elmira, Heidelberg, and Fergus likely will not grow to a point where they will necessitate a conventional intercity bus network, but could benefit greatly from having taxi-sized autonomous electric vehicles that can be reserved or requested upon demand. It would not be difficult to limit the routes to well-established corridors while we test out this program, and should pose little threat to others on sharing the road. These lessons could allow us to gradually expand these permitted corridors further inwards towards town centers and eventually neighborhoods. We know personal transportation is gradually headed in this direction anyway, and few regions offer the same mix of engineering talent and disparities in population density.
Thank you. Carlene, what are the infrastructure priorities for this riding?
Thank you. So I see that COVID has made our internet issues a big issue. So one area of infrastructure development that Conservatives are focused on is to get high-speed internet to all Canadians by 2025. And this is particularly essential for a lot of rural Canadians, and it affects this region as well. Between the townships, there are pockets where it's very difficult to have high-speed internet, and for schooling, to do that online, and for working from home, if and when cases increase more again. I think this is just an area that is really important for Canada. Conservatives have also promised to utilize the money sitting unused in the Canada Infrastructure Bank, and to use that money effectively in partnerships with provinces, municipalities, First Nations, and the private sector Previous Conservative governments have done well in this area, and we look forward to continuing with that tradition. Thank you.
Thank you. Tim, what are the infrastructure priorities for this riding?
Well, James, I'm going to actually echo what my colleague said. We're going to continue, and as a government, to continue to invest and make sure that every Canadian has access to high-speed internet. I've been working tirelessly toward ensuring that happens here in Kitchener-Conestoga. We all need broadband internet. We're about 85% coverage in our riding. Kitchener is covered, and there's some of the outskirts of the riding that haven't. And I've been working closely with the government, with local ISPs to make sure that this happens. I've been working to secure funding through the rapid response stream of our Universal Broadband Fund. And I've met with many local internet service providers to help move these projects through, and an organization called SWIFT, which here in Southwest Ontario. So it's not just Kitchener-Conestoga. I'm working on making sure all of Southwest Ontario gets the internet that they need. The pandemic has shown us that need for the reliable high-speed internet, whether it's for school, for work, for our farms, just to connect with family. And I'm going to keep working to make sure that everyone here is connected. The other specific project in Kitchener-Conestoga that I've been focused on is our regional airport. I've been working with them closely and heard their needs. I helped them secure funding from the airport's capital assistance program for their plans to expand our airport. New airlines will be flying from there soon, and plans to build a new terminal, build up the employment lands nearby, and eventually connect our ION and GO trains there as well. So this is going to help with jobs, with local tourism, and with attracting companies right here to our region.
Thank you. What is your plan to continue to support small business during the remainder of the pandemic and beyond? And would you support higher business taxes? Carlene, we'll begin with you on this question.
Okay, great. Thank you. First, no, Conservatives don't support higher taxes, and I have spoken with numerous small businesses. They are our bread and butter of our economy, especially here in Kitchener-Conestoga. Our platform is incredibly detailed and has given me a huge amount of hope, actually, to see us out of this economic crisis that we're in. So Canada's recovery plan will boost local businesses with our Canada Job Surge Plan. It includes covering up to 50% of the salary of those unemployed for over six months. The platform also includes the Main Street tax credit, which will provide a 25% tax credit on a personal investment of up to $100,000 in small businesses. Canadians are concerned with the health of small businesses, have only one party to vote for, and this is the Canadians Conservatives. If you are not convinced, read Canada's recovery plan yourself, and I think you will be impressed. Thank you.
Thank you. Tim, what is your plan to continue to support small business during the remainder of the pandemic and beyond? And would you support higher business taxes?
Yeah, so whether it was the Canada Emergency Wage Subsidy, which helped keep businesses, keep their employees on the payroll at a time when they simply couldn't afford to, or the Canada Emergency Response Benefit, which helped people keep a roof over their heads and food on their tables, people who had to close to provincial lockdowns, or the Canada Emergency Business Account, which provided interest-free and partially forgivable loans to small businesses to help them meet the rising expenses. We also implemented the Canada Emergency Rent Subsidy, which allowed businesses to pay their rent in the face of declining revenue. So our government acted very quickly and decisively to support business owners and entrepreneurs at a time when they needed it the most. So I'm very proud of the significant and important measures that were put in place, and I know that we need to do more. So we are going to introduce a tax credit for small businesses to make it easier to them to invest in better ventilation. A Canada Recovery Hiring Program, so businesses can afford to hire the workers when they need to recover and grow. We're targeting the highly affected sectors such as tourism, hospitality, and the arts sector with a credit availability program. For those working at home, we're going to extend the home expense deduction for additional 2 years and increase the deductible. We've got the Canada Digital Adaptation Program to grants for small businesses to help with e-commerce, increase the Canada Small Business Financing Program, and also a women's entrepreneur strategy. That combined with our $10 a day daycare will help more women start their own businesses. So we said we'd be there for small businesses. We are, and will continue to be there for them.
Thank you. Owen, what is your plan to continue to support small business during the pandemic and beyond? And would you support higher business taxes?
So in terms of helping small businesses recover, I plan on working closely with the government on the development of a more robust, responsive, and adaptive contact tracing system, similar to the one developed by South Korea following their MERS outbreak in 2015. Their system allowed their society and economy to function with few burdensome regulations and was only shut down for 2 weeks upon the discovery of their very first outbreak. As a result of these measures, their deficit relative to GDP grew by only 3.5% between 2019 and 2020, while ours grew by 14.4%. Using our authority under the Telecommunications Act, we could co-invest with cellular providers in developing a system that allows to repurpose data carriers are already collecting to automatically identify and anonymously alert persons that have been in close contact with a known case, informing them almost instantly of the need to get tested and self-isolate until they receive their results. This ought to have been seriously considered in March of last year, and to my knowledge, it was never seriously considered. This virus will, whether we like it or not, become endemic, and we will be combating this for many years to come. It is still worth our while to pursue this option if we choose to do so. As for higher corporate taxes, of course, I think we should consider raising them. Our government was there to keep these businesses afloat while they were otherwise drowning in red ink. The least we should expect is for them to willingly pay an internationally competitive net tax rate while our government gets our fiscal house in order. If we do not meaningfully address our debt servicing and continue to rely on debasing our currency because sovereign debt markets are simply exhausted at this stage, we are setting ourselves up for a third crisis: the pandemic, a climate crisis, and a financial one, which we would have to manage concurrently. I don't know of a rational person who wouldn't at least consider this. The Green Party has proposed raising the net corporate tax rate back up to 21%, in line with the United States. However, we have also committed to keeping the small business tax rate at no more than 9% in order to help them thrive and eventually expand out of this tax bracket.
Thank you. How can the residents of Waterloo Region assist with reconciliation for Canada's Indigenous people? Tim, we'll begin with you on this question.
Thank you. We as a nation, we mourned. I still, at the doors, we still see orange shirts and symbols and children's shoes displayed stark images that remind us of our past. We're working with First Nations directly to ensure that survivors, families, and community members are provided with the immediate and necessary resources and support as determined by their community. So Budget 29 committed to continue the work started by the Truth and Reconciliation calls and implement calls to action 72 to 76. And we recognize that these findings bring back traumatic and painful memories for some of the residential school survivors. So we've created a national residential school crisis line, and we're implementing those calls as well. We've developed a 2-year strategy. The first, we funded a large-scale national initiative for educational and legacy components, and the second year for community-based projects. And I can tell you that right here locally, I sat on the Heritage Committee and helped work on legislation. This September 30th will be the first National Day of Truth and Reconciliation. I met with and did a public town hall with Nina Deshane, who is the Indigenous elder for Wilmot, to help our community heal and engage with people. I've met with representatives from Landback Camp in Kitchener, met with representatives from Crow Shield Lodge in Wilmot. I spent the Canada Day commemorating things differently in Williamsburg with the community center there. I met with the New Hamburg Truth and Reconciliation Task Team with Anishinaabe Outreach. Reconciliation should be a partnership with Indigenous peoples, and it's a process that needs to involve all of us. I'll continue to do that work.
Thank you. Owen, how can the residents of Waterloo Region assist with reconciliation for Canada's Indigenous people?
We can and should provide the resources needed for our various school systems to educate our students about our troubled past and to recognize the need to respect our history. In as much the same way schools in Germany continue to dedicate time to teaching their students about their troubled past. I have heard from far too many recent graduates across Ontario about their lack of specific knowledge on the subject. Given the lasting commitments we have to our Indigenous partners, we ought to do more to ensure we are able to live and collaborate together in a respectful and productive manner.
Thank you. Carleen, how can the residents of Waterloo Region assist with reconciliation for Canada's Indigenous people?
Great. Yeah, this is an issue that's very close to my heart. Personally, I would love to explore ways in which our region could provide space for Indigenous communities to meet and celebrate and share their traditional ways, including growing and processing traditional foods. More broadly, a Conservative government will commit to a for Indigenous, by Indigenous strategy, long called for by Indigenous advocates. Canada's Conservatives are committed to putting a stop to federal paternalism and instead partnering with Indigenous communities and empowering Indigenous peoples with the autonomy to meet their own needs, particularly housing needs. Thank you.
Thank you. Do you support universal pharmacare, and what is the estimated cost to the taxpayer? Owen, we'll begin with you on that question.
Sorry. Yes, the Green Party has long had in its platform a dedication to pharmacare. We've long recognized that it's not only the right thing to do for our citizenry, but it's the right thing to do fiscally. We are spending far too much through a variety of different programs and in a very inefficient way. Having a single payer system would certainly allow us to capitalize on a lot of bargaining power and negotiating with providers. We have previously cost out this service. We hadn't during this particular campaign. We did in 2019. Upon full implementation, the estimate that was provided by the Parliamentary Budget Office was about $14 billion for our particular proposition, which, based on multiple accounts, including one report by C.D. Howe in, I believe it was 2013, had established that a program such as this would allow us to net somewhere in the order of about $4 to $10 billion in savings per year, simply from the increased bargaining power that we would have to try to avoid, to hopefully avoid the continuously escalating costs of pharmaceuticals over time.
Thank you. Carleen, do you support universal pharmacare, and what is the estimated cost to the taxpayer?
Okay, so the Conservatives 100% support universal healthcare access. Our party will increase health transfers to the provinces back up to the 6% level, totaling $60 billion investment over the next 10 years. We don't believe that a universal pharmacare plan is the best or most cost-effective route to get Canadians the drugs and pharmaceutical supplies that they need.
Thank you. Tim, do you support universal pharmacare, and what is the estimated cost to the taxpayer?
I will state this clearly. I do support universal pharmacare, and we as a government are committed to national universal pharmacare. As a federal government, we're already working with the provinces, and we've reduced prescription drug prices. We've got a $500 million a year national strategy for reducing the high cost drugs for rare diseases, and also a national formulary, which is going to be a list of all the drugs that will be covered. And we're establishing a federal drug agency to already do the bulk buying and reduce the cost. We are moving forward as we speak. One province, PEI, has already signed on. So the work is going as we speak, and we're going to work with the rest of the provinces and the territories. No one should have to visit a healthcare, have their healthcare professional visit covered and then not being able to afford the prescription filled. I know this because as a self-employed musician my whole life, that was me. And at one time that you can go to the doctor and you can, that's covered, but the prescription's not, and you have to decide, can I afford this? That's not something we want to do here. I won't forget that, and we're going to work to make this happen and finish the job.
Thank you. What are your ideas for addressing the housing crisis, ownership and rentals in Waterloo region? Carleen, we'll begin with you on that question.
I hear this immediate concern at the door every single day. First, we need to ban foreign buyers. And then we need to get inflation and public finances under control. We can't ignore the connection of our out-of-control housing market to the out-of-control public debt. Our recovery plan also promises to tackle the housing supply by getting new houses built across the country. And this is an area that we just can't trust to deliver for Trudeau to deliver on. This is the third time he's promised to fix it. Thanks.
Thank you. Tim, what are your ideas for addressing the housing crisis, ownership and rentals in Waterloo region?
Every Canadian deserves a place to call home. And for many young people in particular that dream of owning their home, it feels like it's moving further out of reach. And this is especially true now as Canadians deal with the COVID-19 pandemic and the global economic crisis. So we've put in place already Canada's first ever national housing strategy. And we're about 3 years into that and making progress already. Moving forward, we listened to what people needed, and our platform on affordable housing will address these prices, bidding wars, speculations, vacant properties. One of the things I'm proud of is we're going to help young Canadians afford down payment faster by introducing a tax-free first home savings account, which allows Canadians under 40 to save up to $40,000 toward their first home and withdraw it tax-free to put toward their purchase. No requirements to repay it. So we're going to ban blind bidding is not as a triple alliteration there. Ban blind bidding, which is something I'm hearing at the doors all the time. That's very welcome. We're going to establish a legal right to a home inspection, ban foreign ownership of Canadian houses, make the first-time home buyer incentive more flexible, double the first-time home buyer's tax credit, and we've signed a Canada Housing Benefit Agreement with every province and territory to help Canadians pay rent. And on the supply side, yes, we're going to build more houses. We've launched a rapid housing initiative, which is in creating new housing units all across Canada, including here in our region. And we're going to invest in municipalities to accelerate housing construction. And to help finance this, we're going to ask the largest banks and the insurance companies to pay a little more and pay into it. Banks and insurance companies that make over $1 billion a year. I think that's fair.
Thank you. Owen, what are your ideas for addressing the housing crisis, ownership and rentals in Waterloo region?
Well, our severe housing shortage has forced many families to radically increase the proportion of their household income directed towards housing of any kind, distorting prices for both public and private housing. While this may be profitable for some, it will have lasting damage to the ascending families, to our ascending families and their children. We have failed to keep up with the need for affordable housing for decades now. We haven't been able to provide them with many with an opportunity to access decent and respectable, a decent and respectable quality of life through their housing by both reducing federal involvement in new construction and allowing existing units to fall into a state of disrepair. We propose revisiting the mandate of the Canada Infrastructure Bank and the CMHC to enable both cooperative and municipal and provincial housing projects access capital to fund their projects at interest rates that they can reasonably afford, while ensuring their rental rates support a healthier fiscal balance for these families. To make the process easier to navigate, we also propose the creation of a national co-op housing strategy that allows these entities to connect with communities with the resource. Allow them to connect communities with the resources needed to incorporate and to obtain the financing for the projects they propose. In order to release additional slack capacity in the private sector, we continue our promise to eliminate the deemed GST on unsold condo units for those that are willing to make them available for rent.
Thank you. What measures do you propose to assist local technology companies? Tim, we'll begin with you on this question.
Thank you. First, I'll say a little bit about our record as a government. We've implemented Canada's first intellectual property strategy and Canada's first innovation and skills plan. And we also created the Strategic Innovation Fund and the Net Zero Accelerator. We're attracting skilled talent from around the world with our global skills strategies. And this Waterloo region we have great tech startups here in our region, tech and innovation capital of Canada. We need to create that environment to allow them to stay here and scale up, not start and get success and sell off the company and then leaves the region. So we're going to be reforming and improving the scientific research and experimental development program to help those companies scale up. I've met with local companies here in Kitchener-Conestoga. We've talked about the Innovation Assistance Program, combining tech and environmental solutions, and I got them funding. I've had roundtable discussions with stakeholders here in the tech industry. We listen to their needs. So they're asking for not just engineers, they're asking for sales, marketing, development skills people, the creative class as well, to build these companies. They're asking for support with R&D. And we need to be teaching entrepreneurship and applying and protecting IT. In short, we need to reduce uncertainty so these companies know how aggressive they can be with their investing and make our region, Waterloo region and Kitchener-Conestoga, a place to grow their business. That's the environment I'm going to continue to work hard to create.
Thank you. Owen, what measures do you propose to assist local technology companies?
While it would help to establish what technology in particular you're referring to, I will say that the Green Party has long been in favor of becoming a leader in investments in research and development relative to other developed nations. We produce phenomenally talented researchers, and however, we have allowed ourselves to gradually fall to the lowest rate of R&D investment relative to GDP amongst OECD nations. Our immediate goal is to increase our overall research and development funding to match at least the OECD average, getting it from a 1.7% of GDP to 2.5%. Despite some promising innovations, we're falling well behind emerging countries in the development of new processes and refinements related to emerging industries, especially in clean tech, namely renewable energy production and storage, as well as the climate modeling we will need in order to invest wisely in the protective measures we will need to pursue in order to adapt to a rapidly changing world. We know these talents exist within the region in order to pursue these solutions, and we will need in order to respond, adapt, and thrive in the world that awaits us. And we hope to provide the resources needed to unlock this potential.
Thank you. Carleen, what measures do you propose to assist local technology companies?
Great. So Conservatives are committed to making Canada, including Waterloo region, the best place in the world to start and scale a tech startup. Specifically, this includes a plan to make Canada a low tax jurisdiction for income made from patents, which are developed domestically, and make it far easier to get patents in the first place. I look forward to seeing our region lead in this area. Thank you.
Thank you. This next question will begin with Owen. What are your plans to grow an environmentally sustainable economy across Waterloo region?
Well, I would hope that my earlier answers on this topic have been covered fairly well. Personally, I hope to spend my time in Parliament pursuing ways to amplify the effects of our other efforts to address climate change. Namely, I would strongly encourage our next government to revisit the tax credit program designed to encourage investments in carbon capture technology, to add a provision that all benefactors from these supports must surrender the carbon dioxide they capture to a new Crown corporation that will serve as a clearinghouse for a multitude of industrial applications for this byproduct that we can both sequester into other industrial products while reducing the greenhouse gas emissions from those activities, neutralizing other toxic waste products, saving money, and also reducing our need for extractive industries such as aggregate mining. We've also proposed the creation of federally protected land trusts to prevent the rezoning of irreplaceable farmland and protect our groundwater, easily the two most unique characteristics of this region that are most risk of irreversible change.
Thank you. Carleen, what are your plans to grow an environmentally sustainable economy across Waterloo region?
So Canada's Conservatives are the only party that has a real plan to address climate change, to meet our emissions reductions targets, to empower consumers to make decisions for our environment without doing it on the backs of working Canadians and sacrificing our economy. If we don't have a strong economy, we can't fix the climate change. And our carbon credit program would replace the carbon tax program that the Liberals have in place right now. We know that we need to develop technology to improve our own environmental impacts, but at the same time, we need to stand up to major polluters like China. If you're voting for climate action, vote Conservative.
Thank you. Tim, what are your plans to grow an environmentally sustainable economy across Waterloo region?
Well, here in the region, we've got rural and urban at the same time, and so we can focus on both, on all of Kitchener-Conestoga. And I just want to say the Liberal Party knows that we can protect our environment, fight climate change, and grow the economy at the same time. We know we need to get to net zero by 2050. We've altered the trajectory of Canada's emission targets in the right direction. We've got one of the most detailed climate plans in the world. It targets emissions in every sector. Recently, we raised our targets to 40 to 45% by 2030, and we've put these targets into binding law. It's aligned with what scientists say we must achieve. So experts reviewed all the parties' plans and rated the Liberal plan the highest by far, saying it will achieve our reduction goals. And of course, we're going to look for opportunities to go even further in the future. Andrew Weber, the former leader of the BC Green Party, said, quote, "The Liberal climate plan is both bold and thoughtful and is the only credible climate plan put forward by any party at the national level." But to sum it up, it's all levels of government that need to work together. And we're talking about banning single-use plastics. We're going to plant 2 billion trees. We're going to support green tech. All new cars and trucks sold by 2035 will be electric vehicles. We're investing in charging stations and green investments right here in our region in Kitchener-Conestoga. And we're working in cooperation with our agriculture sector for nature-based solutions to protect our environment and sequester carbon dioxide.
Thank you. Where are the priority areas for investment in skills development and post-secondary education across Waterloo region? Carlene, we'll begin with you on that question.
So one really interesting aspect of our Canada Recovery Plan is the investment in job training to create greater opportunities for Canadians. A key aspect of that is the Conservatives' commitment to invest $250 million over 2 years to create the Canada Job Training Fund, along with the creation of a working Canadian training loan of up to $10,000. Thank you.
Thank you. Tim, where are the priority areas for investment in skills development and post-secondary education across Waterloo region?
James, I'm glad you mentioned post-secondary and skills in the same sentence, because here in Waterloo region, we've got 2 universities, we've got and community college at the same time. So whether young people want to go and go to post-secondary at the 2 universities here, or they want to go to Conestoga, they can learn skills, trades, they can get a degree. We want to make sure that student debt is not going to be a barrier for them to get into the workforce. So we've got a lot of plans to make sure that when students come out, they don't have to pay the federal interest portion on student debt. And also they don't have to pay back those loans until they make $50,000 a year in a job. That way they're not paying it 6 months out and not getting a job. And it is not just about the university degrees, it is about skills. I've met with Conestoga College a number of times. I've met with the unions and we talked about how we need younger people in skills as well. There's an attrition rate due to COVID right now from our skills. And if we're going to build back better, and we're going to need this next generation of skilled labor, young people who can get up and take that job and do it right. So we've got fantastic post-secondary institutions right here in our region, and people come from all over the world there, including our global skills strategy, attracting people here, and they come here to go to school and they want to stay here and work. So the Liberal Party has detailed plans to create that environment to let our young people stay here, whether it's post-secondary or skills. We want them to contribute to building the future of our country.
Thank you. Owen, where are the priority areas for investment in skills development and post-secondary education across Waterloo region?
Well, it's been the longstanding policy of the Green Party of Canada to ensure that we consider all forms of post-secondary education and professional skills training a universal right, with both debt relief for those that are maintaining it at this point and no ongoing accumulation of debt whatsoever during their studies. We believe in allowing all citizens the opportunity to pursue their maximum potential, And in terms of priorities, we would imagine that most students can reasonably understand where their talents would lie and pursue an area of a study that would be of both interest to them and something that would align well with their personal skills. If there was any direction that we would certainly like to steer them towards, it would be both in practical sciences, particularly in chemistry and material science, certainly agriculture, especially more advanced techniques in agriculture, in order to allow us to better manage our food supply and pursue food sciences that we just simply have not yet been able to bring to market, but offer great potential to both reduce costs and improve the quality of the products that we have access to. Aside from that, as mentioned before, we are in dire need of additional talented statisticians, mathematicians, and climate scientists to be able to help us understand where our needs are going to lie as we start triaging our financial resources to be able to protect ourselves as our climate gradually changes over time.
Thank you. What program should the federal government implement to attract foreign trained professionals? Tim, we'll begin with you on this question.
Thank you for that. Can you just repeat it one more time? You said foreign.
Yeah, absolutely. What program should the federal government implement to attract foreign trained professionals?
Okay, that's a fantastic thing. People all over the world want to come to Canada for a better life, and Canadians are so accepting and so welcome. We are taking people in from all over the world. That's what we do here in Canada, and they bring skills with them. They bring amazing skills with them. With an aging population, we need to encourage that. So we're going to increase our immigration numbers, and we're going to make sure that people are recognized for the skills that they have. We want to make sure that people bring those credentials and are able to work here, especially in sectors like science, in sectors like public health care. We have people from all over the world, and including agriculture. We're bringing people in who are skilled at what they're doing. And we've got programs, like I said, the Global Skills Strategy, just increasing immigration numbers and recognizing the skills that people have and making sure that they can become part of our culture, part of our country, and really contribute the way they want to and bring their families with them.
Thank you. Owen, what program should the federal government implement to attract foreign trained professionals?
It has always been the position of our party to encourage those that are planning to come to Canada to work with our government to establish their credentials before they finalize their residency application. We want to ensure that the day that they arrive here, that they are adequately skilled for the work that they have done, they have engaged in previously, and are able to contribute to their fullest extent, rather than starting the process after they've arrived in Canada.
Thank you. Carlene, what program should the federal government implement to attract foreign trained professionals?
So I have met with many new immigrants in the Kitchener area recently, and Canada gains so much from the wonderful people that come here. And like Tim said, Canada is known for being this wonderful place, and they choose Canada to come here. And that's wonderful. I'm proud of our writing for the ways it accepts and it values these individuals. But we can do more. To highlight just one aspect of the detailed Conservative plan, Canada's Conservatives will immediately launch a credential recognition task force to develop new, timely, and appropriate credential recognition strategies. This is a great opportunity for those who have immigrated here and for the growth of our economy. So a doctor or an engineer would be immediately linked to the areas that where they would know how to get their credentials recognized here right away. Thank you.
Thank you. Are new international trade agreements a priority? Owen, we'll begin with you on that question.
So you're asking which international trade relationships would be a priority?
Are new ones a priority? New international trade agreements a priority for your party?
So ones that do not currently exist or ones that have recently been created? Sorry, the question I find to be a bit hard to follow.
Okay, I believe it is intended to center around ones that don't exist.
Okay. To be perfectly honest, I can't think of any in particular that would be of greater importance than others. We certainly have an interest in expanding our markets internationally with effectively all potential partners. I'm particularly concerned about the way in which we've done this before. Certainly in the case of our FIPA arrangements with nations like China in particular, have certainly put us in a very awkward position in the past. Frankly, our party is much more concerned about the method by which we engage in these agreements than necessarily who we enter those agreements with.
Thank you. Carlene, are new international trade agreements a priority?
So recently, Aaron O'Toole released part of our plan for trade, which said simply that Conservatives will secure free trade with free nations. And I think that says a lot because we have an increase in trade, leading to an increase in domestic jobs and our GDP, which doesn't compromise on human rights or environmental standards. Similar to what Owen said regarding China, I just think that we need to look at more governments that have similar values to Canada and increase our trade with them. Thank you.
Sorry, I was muted there. Tim, are new international trade agreements a priority for you?
You won the bingo, James, for being the person who spoke with the being muted. So fantastic. You know what? We are the party that negotiated the new NAFTA, CUSMA, with the United States. We negotiated CETA with the European Union. We negotiated CPTPP with our allies. All of those things. Canada's a trading nation. And all the while we're doing this, we're protecting our own workers and getting our products out to market throughout the world. We're protecting our jobs, including, and very important to me and very important here in the region, is protecting supply management for our agriculture sector, our dairy farmers and chickens. So we are already have moved forward on some big, we're trading with more countries than any G7 nation. And we'll continue to be trading partners with people. We'll do it in a way that grows our economy and protects our workers at the same time.
Thank you. Next question. Do you support increasing capital gains taxes and or taxing capital gains on the sale of principal residences? Tim, we'll begin with you on that question.
Let me say no. Let me say no emphatically, and let me say no angrily, because I'll tell you right now, the Conservatives are spreading this misinformation. It is not going to happen. It is not true. Full stop.
Thank you. Owen, same question to you. Do you support increasing capital gains taxes and or taxing capital gains on the sale of principal residences?
On the sale of principal residences, no. That is not our position by any means. In terms of capital gains in general, we certainly do endeavor to close various capital gains tax loopholes. The capital gains, various capital gains loopholes allow people and corporations to only add half of their capital gains to the taxable income, while those with only employment income pay taxes on the entire amount. Obviously, over 90% of the value of this tax break goes to the richest 10%, with about 85% going to those to only the 1%. Sorry, to the top 1%, I should say. Yeah, I'm sorry. I'm reading that directly off of our platform, mostly because I wasn't anticipating it, and I certainly wasn't that interested in that much about the tax portion of this. I don't fundamentally understand what we're trying to propose here. Sorry, it's a new platform. We received it just a few days ago. I'm still getting through the 103 pages of it.
No worries, thank you. Carlene, do you support increasing capital gains taxes and or taxing capital gains on the sale of principal residences?
No, absolutely not. Conservatives would never do that. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Next question, we'll begin with Owen to begin, is what are your party's plans for national urban transit?
Well, we're certainly continuing with our push towards making sure that we are investing in high-speed electrified rail to connect our major urban centers and to gradually make additional investments in both fully electrified local transportation options, buses, additional trams. And beyond that, we remain committed to encouraging our municipalities to make gradual adjustments to their to the road designs to enable significantly more personalized transportation options or personal propelled transportation options as opposed to relying on personally owned vehicles or even mass transit for that matter. We certainly recognize that we are gradually evolving to an environment where we're going to be relying less and less upon scheduled transportation and relying more and more upon autonomous taxi services, as we discussed before. But as of right now, we're trying to remain open and examine all options to both reduce costs for consumers and municipalities while reducing our impact on the climate.
Thank you. Carlene, what are your party's plans for national urban transit?
National urban transit. So public transit is important, but we need to be realistic. Canada is a big northern country where many people, the idea of giving up a car and taking transit is simply impossible. That makes electric and hydrogen vehicles essential to meeting our climate goals. Canada's Conservatives will introduce a zero emissions vehicles mandate based on British Columbia's requiring 30% of light duty vehicles sold to be zero emissions by 2030. Thank you.
Thank you. Tim, what are your party's plans for national urban transit?
We're already working on a strategy for zero emission public transit, and we're taking steps already. I know Guelph has got public transit that's buses. We're really moving now to get cars electrified or cars off the road. And we've got the first ever, where we've got a first permanent public transit fund. So we can work directly with municipalities. The federal, the FCM, the federal cities and municipalities is extremely happy that we're making public transit fund permanent, because that's what we need. We need to have stable funding so these municipalities have the funds they need to make that happen. We're accelerating major transit projects in urban, but also because Kitchener-Conestoga is rural and urban, we've got a fund set up to build public transit in rural communities. And I sit on the rural caucus, and we're advocating that things look different in those small communities. Public transit looks different in smaller communities too. So I'm already working with the municipalities, with the region, and with the government to work on a strategy for a rural public transit systems as well. That combined with moving over to a green energy and green buses and a green system, and again, permanent public transit fund, which is most welcomed by the municipalities.
Thank you. The next question we'll move on to, we'll begin with Carlene for the first response. What do we need an election right now?
Yeah, definitely not. We did not need this election. And I know the Conservatives and the NDP and the Green all asked for this not to happen. We are in the middle of the fourth wave that's coming on, and we most definitely do not need this election. I won this nomination back in February, and so I have paid very close attention since February as to what was going on in the House of Commons, and things were happening. Things were getting done. The parties were working together. Perhaps the Liberals didn't get everything in that they wanted to get through, but the oppositions were actually working together. And that was great to see, because I think regardless of which party you stand for, when you get to the House of Commons, I think they all need to work together and be civil and be respectful. And I didn't see that as clearly as I would have liked to have seen in the last 6 months. So that said, we're here, but we did not need this election. And I hear at the door again and again how people did not want this election. They wanted to enjoy the summer. They wanted to enjoy not being in lockdown and to just get through this fall. So yes, it's very disappointing that the Liberals decided to choose this time, especially the day of Afghanistan. All of that was happening, and it was terrible. It was heartbreaking to see that happen. So no, we did not need this election right now. Thank you.
Tim, do we need an election right now?
Well, I was there in Ottawa, and there's been a toxicity that was delaying extremely important legislation that's been there for the last year. And the Conservatives in particular voted down confidence votes to bring the government down multiple times to have no confidence votes, which would have triggered an election. So they did everything they can to cheerlead Canada's failure, which is very disturbing, I should say. As Canadians, we all wanted to work together. In the beginning, it started working together, but then politics got involved. So for the last year, basically, we were told by the opposition, specifically the Conservatives, told what we're doing wrong. We're doing everything wrong. We're doing everything wrong. And finally, by calling an election, we're saying, don't tell me what we're doing wrong. Tell me what you would do differently. And then we're letting Canadians decide. And we have a big decision to make if we're going to keep moving forward or if we're going to move backwards on women's health choice rights, backwards on inclusion, backwards on who we support, backwards on having childcare or not having $10 a day childcare like the Conservatives said they will repeal. This is a big decision and a big choice. And we want Canadians to be able to make that decision. So we ask them to be part of it. And then we go out to the doors and say, what's important to you? And so I feel that Canadians have come to terms with that. They feel like they have a voice now at the table. They can decide what happens next. And I hope that we're going to choose to move forward.
Thank you. Owen, do we need an election right now?
I can't understand why we did. I've gone through both the original proposals brought forth by the Liberal Party plus their platform at this stage. I don't know what legislative priority they could not have passed with the support of either the NDP, the Bloc Québécois, or the Conservatives. There's no reason why we need to have this election now. One thing I will definitely mention as well, following the 2019 election, knowing how tenuous this minority government was, happened to be, I was working on establishing with members of all the opposition parties on fabricating a private member's bill so we could introduce a one-off election using mixed member proportional representation, effectively as a poison pill to avoid a snap election just like this. I had support from all the other parties in Canada, with the exception of the Conservatives, who seemed interested in listening initially and then simply just dropped the ball, identified other priorities they were willing to follow, and the matter just simply died. I would certainly like to have seen the Conservatives champion this issue of electoral reform, which the Liberals had dropped after the 2015 election. And had we done either, we certainly could have avoided this entirely unnecessary, costly, and dangerous election.
Thank you. Next question is, why is your party leader the best candidate for Prime Minister? And Tim, will begin with you with the first answer.
Sorry, I lost the picture for a second. There we go. I would say that if you think back during those early years, every day people turned on the television looking for leadership, and every day our Prime Minister came out of his house, stood there, sometimes with his children behind him peering out the window, and explained to people what was happening and felt empathy with people and said we would be there to support people. And we have. And we're moving forward, and we're doing it in a way that includes everybody. And I think that's important. And so we had one of the largest repatriations in Canada since World War II. We had people coming back to Canada from all over the place, and they wanted to make sure they were home and safe. And then we did. We kept them safe. We procured vaccines, enough for everybody in Canada, months ahead of schedule. And we're leading the world in vaccine right now. And we're building capacity to do that moving forward. So we're learning from where the problems happen, where the cracks in society were, and we're going to make those improvements. We've taken the lessons that we've learned from COVID and put that into our platform, not just tax cuts for the wealthy. We're talking about helping people who need the help the most. And so every day people have turned to our Prime Minister, and he was there explaining things and moving, and we listened every day on the phone, every night, 7 nights a week for months. I phoned into Ottawa and said, this is what I'm hearing here in Kitchener-Conestoga every single night for maybe 4 or 5 months. And then we went to every other day and every week. We got that feedback. And as a government, we listened and we tuned our programs, and programs that would have taken years actually only took a few weeks to get out and support people. We said we'd have Canada's backs, and we did. And we will continue this as we work to finish the fight of COVID together.
Thank you. Carleen, why is your party leader the best candidate for Prime Minister?
So Erin O'Toole believes in a welcoming Canada. I absolutely have full confidence that Erin O'Toole would be the best Prime Minister that we could have in Canada. I have very little confidence in Trudeau. He has a lack of integrity, a lack of accountability. He refuses to answer questions repeatedly from the media and from opposition in Parliament. It happens over and over again. And I think a strong democracy requires strong opposition, which means they actually have to be accountable. They actually have to answer the questions that the opposition asks. And I saw that lacking over and over again in the House of Commons. That's what I was referring to when I said that there was a lack of respect in the House of Commons. So with regards to Aaron O'Toole, I think he would be absolutely the best Prime Minister that Canada could have right now. So he believes in, he will represent Canadians regardless of their age, their religion, color, background, gender, or sexual orientation, and that Canada must be a country where anyone can live a normal and fulfilling and prosperous life. Aaron O'Toole was not born with a silver spoon in his mouth. He was born and raised by middle-class parents in a middle-class neighborhood. He's from Bowmanville, a working class community where his friends and neighbors are auto workers. His dad worked for General Motors for over 30 years, and both his mom and stepmother were teachers. We can relate to Aaron O'Toole. He can relate to us, which is so important in a prime minister. And Aaron O'Toole has his military background. He was in the military for 12 years as an Air Force officer. He joined at 18. He went on to become a lawyer and a successful career in business before running for office here. Family and service are what drive Aaron O'Toole. He is a strong leader who values dependability and hard work. And he's married, has 2 children, and like I said, like, we can all relate to Aaron O'Toole and he can relate to us. And I think that is, again, just so critical. I have seen him again and again step up and answer questions decisively in the town halls that he's doing, in the Zoom calls that I've had with him, that other members of the riding have had with him. And whatever question comes up, he just answers it and answers it decisively. And that gives us all confidence. And I won this nomination back in February. And honestly, I really wanted to see the details, but all the details came out at the beginning of the election. And when I finally read the 160 pages, I was given hope. Finally, there's a real plan to get Canada moving out of this economic stagnation that we have found ourselves. There's been, our investment in the economy has not increased since Trudeau was elected. Since 2015, our business investment has not increased. And we can't pay for all of these wonderful social programs that we all love and want to rely on here in Canada without a solid economy. And only the Conservatives can do that. So I absolutely think that Prime Minister Aaron O'Toole sounds great to me and would give Canadians and people all around the world, frankly, confidence to invest in Canada. Thank you.
Thank you. Owen, why is your party leader the best candidate for Prime Minister?
Well, I'm sure this answer is going to draw a lot of laughs, generally speaking, but she's the one that our members selected. We don't put the same priority on our leader as others do. We're not a top-down organization. We administer ourselves primarily from the membership and grant our individual members of parliament a great deal of latitude in order to represent their ridings. It is based on our parliamentary structure, a requirement to have a leader, and I have no personal qualms with Annamie Paul as ours, but in terms of necessarily being the best prime minister, it would be difficult for me to point to any individual quality. I'm not entirely sure what else to tell you. We do require one, and we have very strong members that we entrust to represent both the party and the membership.
Thank you. We'll now proceed to closing remarks from each candidate. So we will go from reverse order from opening remarks. So we'll begin with Carleen for your closing remarks.
Okay, thank you. So Canada's recovery plan is a detailed and substantial plan, and I think all Canadians can get behind it. If you're voting for climate change, vote for Conservatives. If you're voting for healthcare, vote Conservative. And if you're voting for economic stability, vote Conservative. If you're voting for housing affordability, vote Conservative. Again, I'm grateful to the Chamber of Commerce for organizing the event today and for this opportunity to discuss these issues. I promise to fight for the constituents of Kitchener-Conestoga. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll now proceed to Tim with closing remarks.
First of all, thank you, James, for hosting this, and thank you for the Chamber for doing this, and Rogers TV for sharing this to everyone. These past 2 years, I focused on keeping our community safe, supported, and informed. Safe by working to procure and deliver enough vaccines for every Canadian ahead of schedule. And I've focused on keeping our community supported. The unprecedented business supports, the Canada Child Benefit for families, the funding needed for organizations and municipalities to deliver the services they needed to get to us, to get through this together. And thirdly, I've focused on keeping our community informed with 45 public town halls to share information with you, to hear from you, with phone calls, with emails, stakeholder meetings, roundtables. These are all discussions that helped me represent you. And I can tell you right now, this is going to be a tight two-way race in Kitchener-Conestoga between myself and my Conservative opponent. I've been there twice before. And I've also been there for you since 2019. I will continue to be there for you. And I want to take the time to thank everyone in our community for stepping up and helping each other. I've seen the best of Canadians, and it makes me proud. And at the same time, I've also shared in your challenges and your anxieties through this pandemic. And I assure you that if reelected, I will continue to be there for all of Kitchener-Conestoga. We can continue to move forward with an ambitious plan, or we can go backward on the incredible progress that we've made together. And it's been the honor of my lifetime to represent you in Parliament. And I've worked tirelessly each and every day for you to make sure you had the supports you needed during this pandemic. So on September 20th, let's continue to move forward so we can leave a better, a healthier, and a more inclusive and more affordable future for our children and grandchildren. Let's choose forward for everyone.
Thank you. We'll now go to Owen for closing remarks.
In this election, as with any other, you need to vote for someone that you can trust to represent the interests of your community in Parliament, someone who will work collaboratively with others and be respectfully critical when warranted. As with the Canada-China FIPA agreement, the Harper Conservatives tried to sneak past Canadians in 2012 after caving to their demands and getting nothing in return. It was Green Party leader Elizabeth May who rose up and demanded an emergency session to debate the merits of this particular agreement. The Liberals, who had started the process of negotiating this agreement in 1994, were silent at the time. It was this agreement that forced our country to buy the doomed Trans Mountain Pipeline, which has now cost us over $12 billion and shows no promise of ever being profitable. Had more of us been there, had the Green Party received official party status, we may have been able to do more to protect our national interests. May, Paul Manley, and Mike Schreiner here in Ontario put in the hours, make maximal use of their time, engage with all constituents, regardless of who they voted for or donated to, and work collaboratively with other parties from a position of relative weakness to effect meaningful change. I sincerely hope to count on your support to carry on this legacy and broaden our influence on Parliament so that we can keep our government in line and on track. Tim brought up an excellent point, actually Carleen did as well, earlier about our investments in broadband internet. That was a policy promise that the Liberals had made in 2000 to have it completed by 2002. It's been 17 years and we're only 4/5 the way there. Unlike any other candidate here today, my party will not whip my vote on any issue. I will be there representing you and to pursue the best path forward for this community and our nation. When looking at the other candidates, can you trust that they will be there, that they will listen and bring your concerns to Parliament? If they won't even show up for meetings or respond to the concerns of all constituents, as we've seen from Carleen during this campaign, what business do they have representing you? Can we trust that their undisclosed personal beliefs will not take priority over the concerns of this community? Will they use their time productively, or will they pursue opportunities to engage in meaningless value signaling and create needless controversy in order to stir up donations. Can you count on them to put partisanship aside and help a colleague in desperate need of guidance and support? You are not without options this election. I definitely take issue with the suggestion that this is simply a matter of two choices available to you. If you are still not convinced that there are more than two serious options to consider during this election, I certainly encourage you to check out my website, owenbradley.ca, where I've laid out a great many policy proposals I haven't had a chance to discuss during the campaign.
Thank you. On behalf of the Chamber and Rogers, I'd just like to thank all candidates for participating and taking time out of their day and busy schedules to participate in this forum. If you are a resident of Kitchener-Conestoga, the election date is rapidly approaching, so please ensure you're aware of your voting location. The Chamber and Rogers hope this forum has provided some relevant perspectives on your issues of concern. Thanks to everyone and have a great day.